Welcome to Bruce Tracy Photography. I know what you're thinking. Another guy on YouTube telling you what camera to buy. I'm not going to do that. Every one of you has different needs. You shoot different styles. So the camera you pick is going to be dependent upon what you like to do. Now for me, I recently bought the Canon R6 M2 and not the Canon R5, and I'm going to give you 5 reasons why I did that. But to be honest with you, I started out saving up to buy a Canon R5. I've been saving up for the last year to get an R5. That was my dream camera. But when it came time to actually purchase the camera, I actually switched over and decided that the R6 M2 really meets more of the needs that I have in a camera. So I went that direction. I'm going to share with you guys 5 reasons why I picked that camera. You might be different. There might be reasons why you think absolutely you should get the R5. And if that's what you think, then that's absolutely the right camera to get. It's going to be based upon your style, your needs, the things you like to do with your camera. But for me, what I've been shooting for the last couple of years is I've got the R7. In fact, let me show you that real quick. I got the R7 here. And I've been using this for birds, wildlife, sports, anything where I needed a little extra reach. Now the R7 is a crop censored camera, so you're getting a 1.6 crop factor with a Canon camera. And because of that, it's really good for birds. It's really good for wildlife and sports. Plus, it's got nice tracking. It's got really good animal eye tracking. So for those things, it's been great. But when I'm shooting portraits or if I'm shooting landscapes, anything that I'm putting my camera on a tripod, I've been using my Canon EOS R, which is the original R series camera that I had. So I was splitting time between those two cameras. And when it came time to buy a new camera, I was looking for one that could do all of those things. And the Canon R6 M2 here, it's kind of the jack of all trades. It does all of those things, and to be honest, it seems to be doing all of those things better than those other two cameras did. So now, this is my primary camera. I'm using this for just about everything. I'm taking it out for birds, I'm taking it out for action sports, wildlife, but it's also great for landscapes and for portraits as well. This thing does everything really well. So I'm really excited to have gotten this. In fact, I've taken 2 sunset photos. I've had this for 3 days, that's it. And I've taken 2 sunset photos. I'm going to share those with you because I think they came out really nice. The first one, I drove out to the beach. I live about 45 minutes from Ventura Beach. So I drove out there. I wanted to get a sunset with the mermaids. They have 2 mermaids on each side of the harbor. I wanted to get one of those mermaids in the foreground, one of the mermaids in the foreground, with the sunset behind it. And here's the photograph I got. This is the first shot I took with this camera, and here it is. So you can see great detail, and this was at high ISO. I want to say the ISO was 2400, which is super high ISO. I'm going to get into that in a little bit because that's one of the reasons I picked this camera for, but I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. The second shot was tonight. I ran up to the lake. I live near a lake. I got up into the hills, and I wanted to see if I could catch a sun star using a real high aperture like f20, f18, somewhere around there, to see if I could capture a sun star as the sun disappeared behind the mountains. Here's the photograph I got for that. So 2 nights of sunsets, both of them came out great. I'm loving this camera so far. One last photo I want to share with you before I get into my reasons for getting this camera, and that's the moon. I shot the moon with the RF600 f11 lens. I've taken a ton of photographs of the moon with my Canon EOS R and the R7, and they always come out really good. But the first moon shot I took with this camera and that lens, spectacular. Here, I'm going to show it to you. Here it is. Notice how much detail and crispness is in this moon photo. Very impressive. I'm super excited about this camera already. Those are the first 3 photos I've taken. I'm just getting started, but this is my new all-around go-to camera. Now I'm going to share with you why I picked this over the Canon R5. The first reason I've already told you. It's a jack of all trades. It does everything I want it to do, and it does it well. The Canon R5 is a great camera. It's got an incredible amount of megapixels, and that's the reason I was going to get it, because I really wanted those megapixels. The R6 M2 has half of the megapixels as the R5 does. But I'm going to explain to you in just a little bit how that can actually be a benefit, and one of the reasons I picked this camera up. But first, like I said, was the whole jack of all trades thing. This is it. This camera is going to serve me for years to come, doing all the things that I like to do. The second reason is pretty obvious, and that's price. The R5 costs quite a bit more than the Canon R6 M2. Now granted, the R5 M2 is out now, so you can pick up a used R5 for $2,300, $2,200, somewhere around there. I got this camera, I got it on sale, plus I got it at a camera store where they had a Canon rep who was visiting at the time, so she had additional specials. I got this for 1,900 bucks. The used Canon R5, I could have picked it up for about $2,300. So it's not a huge difference. It's only $400, and at that price point, it makes it almost worthwhile to go get that R5. Now, along with that price point, you're also looking at a used camera versus a new camera. So at $2,200, $2,300, you're getting a used R5, whereas I was able to get a brand new R6 Mark II. With a lens, I love getting used lenses. Lenses will last you forever. If you take care of a lens, it's going to stay with you forever. A camera's a little bit different. A camera has a lifespan, depending on how many times that shutter's been released. So when you buy a used camera, it's hard to know how many times that shutter's already been released. With the new camera, I know I got the full life left in this thing. If I were to pick up an R5, it could already be halfway through its lifespan. And for me, it just made it worthwhile to get the new camera. I saved $400. I got a brand new camera. And for that reason, it was definitely worth it for me. That's my second reason. The third reason, and this one is not probably one that many of you are going to even think about, maybe even a silly reason, but it makes a difference to me. The Canon R6 has two SD cards. Those are the old-fashioned memory cards. I've got old SD card readers, so it makes it easy for me to get the photos off my camera onto my computer and not have to worry about the new CF Express card, which is what you have in the Canon R5. The Canon R5 has both. It's got the SD card and the CF Express card, but CF Express cards cost a lot of money, and I don't have a card reader for the CF Express either. So for me, it just made sense to go with this camera with the two SD cards. It meets my needs perfectly. I'm not looking for those incredibly fast transfer speeds that you're going to get from the CF Express. If that's something you need, well, then the R5 is going to be perfect because you get that extra speed that comes with the CF Express card. I didn't need it. So that actually did play a little bit into my decision. Not a lot, but a little bit. Cheaper cards, and I already have the way to get the photos from this to my computer nice and easy with my card readers. So it did play a little bit. Now, here's a real reason, a serious reason why I decided on this camera over the R5. Yes, this has half of the megapixels of the Canon R5, but there are some advantages to that. I know that there's a ton of disadvantages, but you're looking at the exact same sensor size on both cameras. They're both full-frame cameras. So the sensor on the R6 Mark II and the sensor on the R5, they're the same size. But on the R5, you have double the number of pixels. For whatever reason, the higher the number of pixels you have on the sensor, you're going to get a little bit more noise at the higher ISOs. The Canon R5 is an incredible camera. The noise reduction is great. You can shoot at high ISOs and the pictures are going to look spectacular. But on the Canon R6 Mark II, you get a little bit better control of noise at high ISOs. I shoot a lot of sports indoors. I shoot a lot of sunsets. I like to go out and look for birds at sunset. So I'm shooting in low light situations, and I have already found that this camera handles the low light situations incredibly well. There is not a lot of noise. This thing just seems to handle those high ISOs way better than any camera I've ever had before. And that was a factor when I was deciding on my camera. I gave up on the pixel count, and that was hard to do because I'm sort of a pixel snob. But I'm starting to see some benefits simply with the ability of this camera to handle high ISOs in low light conditions. That was a big factor. And then the last one was actually the factor that set me over the top to pick up this camera instead of the R5. Right now, I go out to take bird photographs probably twice a week, and I'm using my Canon R7. The Canon R7 has a feature that makes it just perfect for wildlife. Well, it's also a crop sensored camera, so the Canon crop is a 1.6 crop factor. That means you're getting that much closer to the subject you're taking a picture of. So the Canon R7 is a really good bird photography camera. And it has a feature that the R5 doesn't have, and I've become just so used to using it that I can't get rid of it, and that is Precapture. When you're out taking pictures of birds, when they're sitting on a branch or up in a tree or just on any kind of a perch, you get your camera ready, you focus on them, you press the shutter down halfway, lock in on the target, and then when the bird takes off, you press down the shutter the rest of the way. Most of the time you miss the bird. It's gone. It's out of your frame before you ever capture a photo. With Precapture, I'm locked in on the bird. I've got the shutter pressed halfway down. Now when the bird takes off, I press the shutter the rest of the way, and Precapture is recording a half second before you actually press the shutter all the way down. So you've now captured that moment when the bird is taking off from the branch or any kind of perch, and that's always a great photograph when the wings just come out. And now with Precapture, I don't miss those shots. The Canon R5 doesn't have Precapture. The Canon R6 Mark II does. So that was the final factor that I used when deciding to get this camera for myself. It just made sense for the type of photography that I do. This camera just seems to fit that bill a little better for me. Of course, everybody's different. You're out taking pictures of different things. You have different needs, different styles. You got to factor all of that in when you're picking up a camera. For me, this camera made sense. The price point, the Precapture, and then the low light capabilities, those were the three main things that really convinced me that this was the way I wanted to go. You've got to factor all that in yourself. Hey, let's face it. If you've got a ton of money, go get the R5 Mark II. That camera does everything, but it's going to cost you the bank, and I don't have bank, so I had to go with this, and I am more than happy with it. All right. Hey, thanks for coming with me today on Bruce Tracy Photography. I'll see you guys next time.